more you chase money, the less value you offer, the less money chases you. The more you chase value, the more money chases you because the more value you offer. People mix those things up. Value and money are not the same thing. People get that wrong.
Facts.
Your human being is programmed, and you're programmed predominantly when you're a child. And a person that knows what love looks like knows how to empathize and care for. A person who knows what surviving looks like will do anything to get out of a situation. And a lot of people are dealing with people who are survival coded, not love coded. A lot of us who are survival coded. The way you fix any bad co-parenting situation is you love the child. Not decide don't feel like I'm not who's going to choose the right school. No. If you love the child, you find a way to make everything work. For you to survive, you need to have one of four things. You need to be attractive. Attractive is different things for different people, but you need to be attractive in some way. Number two, and this is really key, you need to know how to sustain relationships. And you know how to cut off relationships. The third thing is you need to understand who and what you are. And the most important one is communication. If you don't know how to speak up for yourself eloquently, succinctly, and quickly, you are done for.
That's true.
We're gonna do this right because this gentleman is a fantastic speaker. This guy has graced so many stages all across the globe. He has spoken to, he's been with kings, presidents, and it's such a pleasure to actually know him and to have him here on the podcast.
Yeah,
So I'm not going to do this introduction. I'm going to give you a chance to speak to our audience and let them get to know you.
Do you know what's really strange?
Take two.
Okay. Before we take, let me just be straight. I don't see myself like that.
I know.
I don't see myself like that because I honestly think I am more than those things. Those were moments, wonderful moments in my life. But if you ask me who I am, I'll tell you, my name is Tonee. I'm a father of 2 wonderful girls. I am a good friend to the people that I know and care about. I love using my hands, whether it's in woodwork or planting or painting or art or technology. And I've built a few things that have succeeded and a few things that have failed. That's it. Everything else is just too much.
All right.
That's wonderful.
So now that he actually followed the tenets of
what we're talking about.
Because in the last episode I said when people introduce themselves, they talk about the things that they do.
Yeah.
Rather than who they actually are.
Yeah, their jobs and roles and all that. Oh my God, you really are.
That's heavy. That's heavy. It's because all of us identify ourselves with what we do.
Yeah.
Because we identify ourselves with how we bring value to the world, which we have somehow misconstrued to mean how much money we make.
Yeah.
So if I make money through this way, I'll come and tell you this is how I make money, aka this is what I do.
Like this is the value I have.
And that's what you think you are. But the reality of it is, no, man, you're not that. In fact, if anything, the further away you try, and I've said this, the more you chase money, the less value you offer, the less money chases you. The more you chase value, the more money chases you because the more value you offer. People mix those things up. Value and money are not the same thing. People get that wrong.
Facts.
Wow.
Love it.
I know that this conversation is definitely going to be one of those ones that you stop and really ask yourself, hey, what am I doing with my life? And I hope this actually happens to you. So before even we get started, Joyce, give them the instructions.
4. So the instructions, I'm sorry.
She looked at you like a blank
I'm so distracted today. So guys, we are on our journey to 100k subscribers. We are on our journey to our 100th episode. So what we need you to do right now is just take 1 minute of your time, just one, and hit that subscribe button. And as you do that, like, share, tell a friend, tell your grandmother. I mean, it's more PG than anything, but it's very PG-30 friendly.
Yeah. Because I was going to be like, what's some of what you guys have? I don't know if you're telling the truth.
That's PG-13. Yeah. So just take a minute and do that thing. And thank you so much for everyone who subscribed so far. And like, share, comment, subscribe.
All right. And now that we finished spending that minute together, Tonee Ndung'u, it's such a pleasure to have you here on the podcast. And I don't want to sound formal, but...
why are you sounding formal?
There's a day, because I'm wearing a suit. So there's a day.
You don't mean know how it's Sheila. I don't know how it's Kwambox.
Yeah.
So I know this person very differently. This is like, okay, tell me.
So in fact, it's a great thing that we start there. So there's a day. So how I know Tonee was dating a friend of mine.
Was and then is. Yeah.
Was and is. Unajua wale wa kickback jump you uno nini? Uno reverse.
Kick back, jump you.
Kick back, jump you, uno reverse. You guys are rough up in here. I've been here 2 minutes, but 2 shots alive.
So, and I remember we went out on it was a trip.
Yes.
We went for a weekend
road trip.
out of town.
Yeah.
It was such a fantastic time. And me and Tonee ended up having a really great conversation about school. And I've kind of guzia'd here on the podcast about how I went to this.
You haven't told them what's up?
No, I didn't tell them all the details.
Wait, was this recently?
No, the boarding school that I went to.
Oh.
So the story goes, when I was in class 4, I'm not going to get into the details.
Why are you not getting into the details?
Because they're... What will I leave for the book?
Okay, fine.
You know what I'm saying?
I see it. You see it. As well. Okay. There's a book coming.
Yeah.
He totally cares about you guys. Wants all the juice.
I really have to leave some. Anyway, but and I don't think it's important for this part of the story.
Okay.
So what happened was I ended up going to a boarding school in Kisii. Right? I was in St. Anna's Primary. I'd grown up in Nairobi. My mom at that time was a single mom, but she had just gotten married. So life was changing right in front of me. Just the same way people for AI. Life is changing in front of you. That's what was happening, right?
Is that the connection?
Yes. And then I went to this boarding school in Shags. And my guys, those 2 years, I always talk about class 5 and class 6 was so pivotal in my life because people always ask me, Kwambox, why are you so strong? Like, why are you... you're that kind of person who's just like, okay, it's not working. No problem. Great. I pick the pieces and I'll go and continue building.
Yes.
There's no stopping. So, and that was from the trauma of that school.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I describe it in a short, in 3 words.
You haven't said what happened in those 2 years.
In 3 words, I'll describe that school. There's a way you also described your school. So I'll describe my school as excellence in education. When I mean excellence, is like you gotta have a good grade.
That's it.
That's it. It's not that's the version of excellence, right? Wild beatings. Wild. Those ones for like you're a prisoner.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And witchcraft. Put that all together in
that's
a box.
why she's leveled up, man.
And then now just also, and I was very unhealthy in that school. Like, I was always dying of amoeba. I had a pet amoeba in my tummy. Right?
Did you name it?
That was just like... It was like, we had even reached a place where it was
weekend.
Yeah, now it's using its own tongue.
Did you name it since it was all...
It's using its own tongue.
Why did you always have amoeba?
Because the water is not fresh, and so you
She's
have
like
to go so very far.
City babe,
City girl.
It was City girl. It was terrible. She doesn't have it, man.
It was terrible. And so I always talk about this with people I've been to the same school with, and I understand the trauma. So it was so interesting meeting Tonee.
Yeah.
And here we are in a very, the people who are with, they cannot even understand.
The party was real, man. They were enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we've driven out
Wait,
of
was this
town.
road trip recent?
Yeah, like 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2.5 years ago, somewhere. Yeah.
And then here we are, and I sit with Tonee in this kitchen, and there he is telling me a similar story. Right?
Yeah.
And so I want to hand over the mic to you, Tonee.
Yes.
Tell us about your experience. And there's something I was watching. If you haven't watched his Engage Talk, I think do yourself a favor and hit this link right at in our comment section, in our description.
Hapushini.
It's fine.
Just be like, the Nini is over there.
Do the thing.
So we'll put the link in the description so you can watch this after, because it's quite powerful. But when you were talking about your experience in school, there's a part you mentioned that, and that was, I think, the most poignant thing that you said is like that person who was in that school with you, because you're talking about it, but there was 560 other people in that school. And you said that is your toxic friend, that is your toxic husband, that is that person who doesn't know how to open up, and you don't know why they are the way they are.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What was your experience in school?
First, it was horrible.
Which school?
I went to a school called Naivasha Boarding.
Okay.
It's a correctional approved facility in those days.
Okay.
In fact, the headmaster of the school, it's called Sam Kamunya, passed away while he had a court case in which he passed away of a heart attack. He had a court case in which he had murdered a child.
Why? Because of
He
beating
beat
them?
them to death. That's in court. but he died before the case was concluded. And the thing that was horrific was that he and myself and his son were in the school at the same time.
Oh.
Yeah, and then we went to high school together.
Right.
And what most people don't understand and appreciate is a human being, and I'll actually, right, because we're talking about code at a point, a human being is programmed, and you're programmed predominantly when you're a child. And a person that knows what love looks like knows how to empathize and care for. A person who knows what surviving looks like will do anything to get out of a situation. And a lot of people are dealing with people who are survival coded, not love coded. A lot of us were survival coded. But for you to change from survival coded to become a love coded person, you have to confront the thing that took you into that ditch. And let me tell you, Nevasha boarding was madness. Excellence was equated to survival. If you do not, and I want to be very clear, if you do not get 100%, whatever you get minus 100%, that's the number of beatings you get.
You know what? I'm now listening to you calling Nevasha boarding an approved school.
Yeah.
And now I'm asking myself, is it the school I was in, was it an approved school?
You need to go look at these things.
Because
what does even approved school mean? Like when it's given
that's a great question.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying this is because when I talk about excellence in beating, it was the same principle.
100%.
You have 98, you get 2 beatings.
Jesus
you get 96,
Christ.
you have 4.
So when you have 16%,
you have 40%.
what are you doing over there now?
God.
And then you know what these guys do? It's because it's colonialist bullshit.
It is.
It's 100%.
This school is on top of a hill, right? It's on top of a hill in Kisii.
Which is
cold. 5 a.m. 5 a.m. is the day the teacher has decided, tomorrow 5 a.m. I will be giving you guys your exam back.
At 5 a.m.
So wewe sasa unajua umepata hapo na 40%.
Yeah, you're doing
kesho matako yako inaenda ku freeze mpaka ikuwe purple. Kwa sababu unaenda you'll be lalishwad and sometimes it's mist.
It's misty.
It's drizzling in the morning.
Do you know how more painful it is when it's cold?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it's like being hit after you just came out of the swimming pool.
There you go.
10 teachers have pangiad you guys are laying from 98, 97 to 40%. Right?
Yeah.
So the teachers come, you're just like that until that one is getting 60 canes.
As in, there's a time there's one time I got a very good grade. I think I got like 84% or something. And so, what she said, you either you stand or you lie down, whatever, depending on the teacher.
God.
And after we all caned down, when the teachers got to like 40, 50%, so you're caned to start walking away. You can stay as long as you like to heal. You start walking away. We went to class. After like 10 minutes, it was break time. You're coming out of break time. You're still seeing 4 or 5 teachers beating the last 4, 5, 6 kids who got like 14%. So that distributing the 90-something, 80-something kids. And you need to understand, we used to be whipped by vines that's about 1/2 to 3/4 an inch thick. So think bamboo sticks, but then bendable. Like every single shower, because you shower, it's open air shower. Like you're just showering as a bunch of guys over there. With Mtungi, all collective. All of us had scars like prisoners. You have even the smartest kid had maybe 3 or 5. And sometimes even the smarter guys, the guys who are known for having 80s, would struggle because if they dropped like to 70s, they became extra because they're the smart ones in the class and they shouldn't drop. If anything, they should increase. That I was 9 years old.
No.
9.
When you are being beaten like that?
9, 10, 11, 12, because it was class 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's a kid younger than that. Yeah. 9. So
like a prisoner.
So you're there, by the time you're leaving, that 1 year, so I was in St. Nicholas Primary School, down here, you go there, the first and second term, your body and brain is being shifted because you're like, my parents actually intentionally bringing me here and leaving me. So your mind tells you you're on your own, you're surviving.
You've been abandoned.
You've been abandoned. That's it. In fact, one of my biggest challenges with therapy is abandonment theory, right? And by the third time, when I went to the third term, you already know. Now I didn't even cry. I was like, let's go to school. So you're taking me, let's go. I'm not gonna wait. I've tried to win this thing. I've made peace with it. So you go. And then you get whipped and you get used to it to the point where crying was for the younger ones or the newbies.
Yeah.
The rest
you're
of you,
9.
You're
nine. You're
Samantha.
supposed to be crying.
You don't know what that is. You're
Well, like,
hardcore.
do you know,
like,
it's so crazy. Every time there
That's
was always that
insane.
kid,
one
right?
brand new kid.
Who's it?
The rest of you look
The
at
rest of
that
us are
child
just like
Dad,
hardcore.
yeah,
Well,
that's
help
it.
me out.
School or hard knocks?
Okay, first of all,
let me finish it. So you go, when I came back from that school, because my mom chomoed me, not because I said I want to leave. She chomoed me because she came towards the end of the term or for a visiting day. And I had scraped, I'd taken one of these Kayapo fence thorns. Kayapo is this fence, mostly in semi-arid
It's called
areas.
K-apple. Mega, it's not called Kayaba.
Kayapo.
which fence is this?
Unakulaga ile ka
It's
fence ya
okay.
Kayaba.
Which fence is it? You know, I'm not the one who doesn't know. We'll put a picture for you guys.
Yeah,
I'm not the one who doesn't
It
know.
has like a
yellow
fruit and then it has thorns.
That's the one.
It's for fences.
And then when you break
Oh,
Okay.
it, Kayapo.
Me naitanga fence.
Kayapo.
You see, you're a city babe.
Now you know.
Yo, kivunja, it has like a white milk.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
you can scrape something, put the white milk, it almost becomes like a permanent scar. So I scraped the word Superman on my left hand using a thorn. And not that it nicely like a tattoo pal over here center. It's square scraping.
This is at what age?
Man, 9.
Stop.
9. So my mom comes to visit. I was wearing a sweater because it was never she was cold at that time. She comes to visit. When she's leaving, I had poured some water on myself. I needed to wipe it. This I remember. 9. I'm 45.
Jesus.
9.
That's
I
very
poured some water and I
scary.
cannot be caught with, any my uniform. I chomoed it so I can bring it and wipe the sweat. She sees Superman. She didn't say anything. She just saw how, and it's not a tiaka scratch. I'd scraped it to the point where it was a scar. And, I put on my sweater. She said nothing. So at the end of the term, when I went home, I'm ready to go next year. My box came. I just saw me being taken to be bought for new uniform. I'm taken to St. Nicholas Primary School. The first time a teacher beat me for something, they slapped me across the face and I moved in closer to her face and I said, Nivio, that's all you've got. Now that was the next year I was 10. That's all you've got. From that day, every teacher knew that Ndung'u boy is a problem. And I really was. Because what are you doing? You chapa me, 2 sticks, Nini. I've come from hell.
Like literally prison.
Hell. And then you're telling me at your...
At you once
It took me 4 or 5 years to get acclimatized to soft life. Very long. Because you have been brutalized at initial code. Like your default code is crazy. So when you have a husband or a boss or a best friend who was in that kind of system, Nevasha Boarding, Gilgil Hills Academy, those schools, even Makini to some extent, if you have a kid who's come out of there, if you don't understand the hardware coding that they had from when they were kids, you're going to be wondering, why are they doing the stuff they're doing right
What's
now?
wrong with you?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with them today. Calm down.
They were
Yeah.
coded
Let's go back.
years ago.
Go look at the source code.
Now you're trying to do
know-
someone who's 40 years old
Who's got a
and this
36-year
programming
history.
started like 30 years ago.
If you don't know, you can't hack.
Yeah.
It's full stop.
And it's so crazy that you mentioned that. I remember when I left, I came now to Westlands Primary, and my experience was a bit different because I realized that and my cousin is the one who pointed it out to me. He's like, he always makes the joke because when he came from there, it took him like a good 3 years, to adapt to now, soft life, right? Because like even food, like you're going for ugali and the chef is standing like a kilometer away from you and he's throwing it like this, like a saucer.
You're supposed to.
Right? It could land on your face, it could land. And if it drops, ni hivo.
That's what you're eating. No. That's what you're eating.
Stop.
And then he has too bad for you a leaf of sukuma wiki just boiled and dabbed in paraffin.
A leaf.
You're just
All leaf. Guys.
They're cutting for you
He
one.
has sent to kata. Right?
It was leaves.
So he
I think she thinks we're joking.
Guys, that sounds like prison.
Exactly. And funny enough, so anyway, when we left that school, I came back and I adapted, right? So I think that my how do you call it? Like to survive, my survival mode was adaptability.
That's it.
So I'd chameleon my way into places. Yeah. So it took me till I started going into therapy to realize that I would. It's sort of code shift. Yeah. So like when I'm here, I'm like
this.
Just so that I don't show my weaknesses, because I've come from a school that has no weakness. You can't be weak.
Yeah.
You understand? So it helps me. It helps you understand why I'm the way I am.
Yes.
But then the reason why we're having this conversation is because you mentioned about the cost on the mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now I have so many people who, just like you, and it's not even a Kenyan thing.
No.
It's a global thing. Global.
Like the Catholic Church is the biggest
Europeans
driver of this, yes.
Who have gone through this.
Yeah.
I have people all over the continent, Nigeria, Zambia, and they share such horror stories. And this was an educational channel.
Yeah.
My parents were paying for this.
Imagine.
Cash money.
No, because the root of all of this, honestly, is just some colonial bullshit.
Yeah.
Like that's the underlying.
It's actually quite crazy because for us it was the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Catholic driven.
It was an
but
SDS.
who brought? How was it brought to you? Even back then, even when you came to like villages and all of that. Remember when you started talking about heart taxes and all that?
Yeah.
They were like, oh, the white man came and like the villagers were like, nah, us we're cool. So they started charging them a heart tax, and they're like, no, but if you bring your children to our missionary school, you don't have to pay. So you see, that's what I mean. Like it started with the colonial. That's how it started, and then it trickled down to us ourselves. We're inflicting the same harm that was inflicted to us by by the colonialists, which is crazy.
And then on top of that, by the way, add onto that the traumas of aside from so one thing that these schools will do is strip you of your individuality. You're not supposed to, because remember, for you are being beaten for somebody's trying to break you. When I joined the school, because I'd come from Nairobi, and I joined, I think, in second term of that, or was it first term?
You are them Georgie.
My guy.
Yeah.
The English teacher was teaching. And I always tell this story. And then she's like, C for cats. I'm in class 5, right? So fast, already I'm like...
You're like, what's a cat?
English is my first language. So I'm like... So she says, say? I'm like, cat. She beat me. Trying to make me say cat. 9-year-old me is just like, what the bitch? It's cats! It's cats!
Another one.
She is trying to... Like, for her... And she now earmarked me like, this thinks she knows English more
better than me.
Because how she's teaching English, those ones of Rakina and
she's teaching in her mama tongue. She's teaching English in Kizi.
Sentence. So here I'm speaking English, bro.
No, she was teaching you English in Kizi. Okay? Get to the program.
English.
She would beat me.
Wow.
She would beat me.
That's
and then,
insane.
on top of that, I was like you. I was fidgety. And, the only thing I remember being a kid is like, Sheila.
That's it. Constant.
Here I am. I love learning, but you gotta engage me.
Yes.
Right? So here I am. All I know about this school is being beaten.
That's it.
And then, disc. Right? So when you bring these traumas, so the freedom of just learning for me was you can't show any weakness. And so becoming an adult, I went to therapy and realized that I had to unlearn some of these things. But you talked about the impact on men's mental health.
It changes you. It changes you fundamentally because already the culture is such that we are the strongest, or we are told we are the strongest in a society. Therefore, the way we understand strength is think of a steel rod. That's what strength is to us.
Right.
But then the thing about if you get hit by a steel rod, that's a challenge. It's stronger than you most of the time.
Yeah.
But try and tether something with a steel rod. Try and when a ship docks, do they put a steel rod? No, they put a steel cable because it's malleable, and it's in malleability that you find strength.
Yeah.
When you find all these guys, pressure starts building up on that steel rod. Pressure of family, pressure of age, pressure of health, pressure of parents, pressure of money, pressure of that steel rod starts getting fractures. It still looks solid, but it's fractured. And what you don't see about a steel rod is the explosive nature of its breaking. That's why when you see guys lose it, it's gone. Yeah. We were never taught what strength looks like.
True.
All that was shown to us is strength is holding up to pain. Full stop. Yeah. Whether the pain is physical, emotional, psychological, financial, you are strong if you can hold up. That's not strength. Yeah. But that's what we were taught. And then you have 100,000 of these or 1 million of these guys walking around being who they are right now. And the majority of even the way we are governed is because a lot of these people were broken when they were small.
Yeah.
And they were told the only way to be strong is to take from everyone else and sit at the top. The only way to be strong is to see people's children die and have a stoic face.
Yeah.
Never show tears, never show weakness, never show softness. And what's happened is you have a group of people who think they are being strong by showing no weakness, by showing no vulnerability.
Right.
And what they're doing is they're in their wake destroying a whole generation of others because somebody destroyed them anyway.
Yeah.
That's why men are falling so far behind when it comes to this generation in every form, whether it's professionally, politically, health-wise, whatever. We are dying on average 12 years before women do.
Dang.
12 years.
That's a lot.
12 years, a decade.
Yeah.
So if you and I are together at 45, I will die at some age, you will live another 12 years after that. And then I imagine that at scale. So most of our kids only have one grandparent.
Yeah.
A mom.
But you know,
that's
Chico
true.
Baya, it's better the guy that is before the baby.
What?
This is not going the way I thought.
But you know, even
Not
like
in a bad way.
yeah.
No, there's no way that's There's no way. Like, what are you
So
saying?
let me finish my sentence.
Okay, finish,
yo.
finish.
You know how you hear Ati? You know, like Guka and a Shosho. If the Shosho goes before the Guka follows like 2 minutes,
immediate,
2 minutes
No,
after.
immediate.
No.
But
Yeah.
actually, like my
If I-
Shosho, my
Yeah.
Guka died when I was, I think, in high school.
She's
still
Same.
there. She's
Even me, my Shosho is still alive, and my Guka
she's
died
still
when I was
going to her
like
biz.
14.
Yeah.
Hey,
And she's
guys.
still going strong. You
But
know
if
what
it was
I
my
mean?
Guka,
Yeah.
who's going to go to the kitchen?
Do you know it's funny?
I need companionship.
Okay.
No, but I told you this. There's a
Men can
study.
live by themselves.
No,
There's
there's
even
actually
a
a study.
study
It's a
that
true
was
one.
done
It's
that
true.
that widowers live longer than widows.
But then,
No,
to your
widows
point.
live longer than widows.
The
Like
babes
if you
live longer than
the
the
babes
dudes.
basically
Nini,
live.
Nini, just do. Let's
Nini,
do.
the Nini and the Nini. So the women live
Check.
longer
Me and Nini.
after losing a
But
Nini.
it's changing.
Yeah.
It's changing.
Really?
And it's changing because, so same to you, my grandfather died in 1987. Very, very long time ago. My grandma, my mom's mom died COVID time. So she lived, like she saw
Like a couple of decades.
people who didn't exist come and grow. Sorry. I have both my parents. Not many people can say that.
Yeah.
Both my parents have fought and survived cancer. Not many people can say that.
Wow.
Both my parents fought and survived cancer, while my daughters were 5 and 3 in one instance and 9 and 7 in another instance, were sitting around them all the time. Like my daughter was coming out, my mom's hair was falling out. They were doing their nails because you lose extremity sensitivity. They built a very strong relationship with their grandparents to the point where every month they go there at least twice a month for the weekend.
That's
and
nice.
they have built such a strong relationship with their grandparents that they feel like they have multiple parents. Because they've done the same thing with my ex-partner.
Yeah.
They have built relationships with their grandparents on that side so that they have a very strong relationship. And what you realize is a child actually needs a village to grow.
True.
Because there's things I think I know that I don't know. And there's a patience level I don't have for my children that my mom and my dad have.
Because they've done it before.
They've done it before and they've seen the long-term ramifications. So in hindsight, they are wiser than I am as a parent.
Yeah.
That's stuff so many families are missing because mzee alikufa juzi. I'm a last year. Or a decade ago.
It's true.
There's a change that needs to happen.
It's
So
true.
even when my daughter doesn't know, is daddy doing it the right way? Or if I am doing it the wrong way, my dad is an option for her to go to and be like,
That's
daddy, I don't
nice.
understand. And give you a very good example. My daughter asked me not a very long time ago, daddy, what's masturbation? I was like, okay.
All right.
Where
Here
do
we go.
We have we have an episode for Boxpod.
Yeah. This is a whole new show.
Hey, is she 13? It was very PG-13.
That's PG-13. I was like, hey, okay. So what we do is let's
You see, well,
let's
let me
get
call you
a cucumber. so, hey, because I'm sorry. What do you do? Wait, bro. What do you do?
You called the mother. What do you mean?
No.
No,
Let
you
me
have
tell
to
you.
have that conversation.
Yeah.
You have
Let me
to.
tell you. Because I'm
You're not
sure.
calling the mother.
You
Hey,
see,
bro.
no. This is
If I had a
escapism.
son, I'm like, Lisa, go talk to your dad.
No.
Son.
In fact, son is so much easier. It's like,
But
I'm
he
just
already
running
showed you the
condition.
video.
Can't just stop it, Kobo.
Hey. Whoa.
Me, I'm telling you, if whether I have
You
a
know
boy
what?
or
You're
a
the
girl,
auntie
get in
I will
trouble,
not
man.
send my kids
I'm the
to.
one
Just
having
know.
that conversation.
Yeah, no, you do it. Because you don't have time to start at you, let me take you on the side of it. No. I'm like, cucumber, please, let's go. Now, that was a fiasco. That's, you know how you watch yourself and you're like, this is rubbish.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Please tell me she at least laughed at you
laughed
because
the whole time.
okay, good.
And she was like, Daddy,
because
you are
that's
terrible at
Henry.
this.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're like, I
Do
tried.
you know, she went and asked my dad.
Yeah.
What?
Clean shot.
Shit.
Yo.
Guka, Daddy cannot tell me what masturbation is. Have you ever seen an old man? He's in his 70s. First you sit with panic.
It's like, what? What?
No.
Hey.
Can't falter because this is his granddaughter.
Yeah.
And it is her
Who's that?
versus the world.
You know?
And he knows if my baby doesn't know this thing is complicated. Hey, first he sat down and talked to her about the Bible, tell her about Jesus. And then, after he was done with that, his disclaimer. Hey, Jesus loves you. Sex is not
For
good
marriage?
before marriage.
Yeah.
But if it is happening, or if it happens, let me tell you. Alikalisho Chino on a sofa set. Men have needs, just like women have. You know how you're sitting in the back, even me, I need to
You're
hear
like,
this.
let me
'Cause
listen.
I
I
want to
could
know
learn
what comes out.
something.
I could learn a thing or two. Man, so typically men look for women for these needs. Sexual needs. We've talked about. I'm sure you've talked
From my
about
grandfather.
it. And when men don't have them, they can do it themselves.
Look at Joyce's
They
face.
can create an environment that looks like a vagina. You know what a vagina is? Let me tell you. He talked to her
70
so
years
nicely.
old.
You know how you're like,
Yeah.
you're in the kitchen over there, you're congrats. Because unlike me,
Yeah.
there's a certain
panicked.
level of embarrassment that his affection for his granddaughter supersedes.
Yeah.
So he will not do it with me. Because with me, there's a level of pride that supersedes the affection.
Do you know,
and
it's
that's what you need grandparents.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The whole thing for like having a village, and back in the day, that's why these things worked like so much better because the child had so many options. If I can't, honestly, I can't see myself talking to my mom about sex. But if I have like an auntie or like someone who's like, the way even used to be like even put in like age groups. They're like, oh, go and see Auntie Nani today. The boys are going and put. Because like there's some conversations you can't, like you said, there's a level of embarrassment. But if you take them to like an uncle, like your dad's brother or like somebody who
and there's always
you
that
trust, in the village. That's why these things were not like a big deal to talk about back then. But now, hey, I can't even imagine.
Like, I have a friend who's a fantastic professional sex coach. I didn't know like that's a thing.
That's a thing.
And it's cool. I was like, oh, this is what you do. Nice. Tell me about it. And she's like, what problems do you think people have sexually? I'm thinking the usual: erectile dysfunction and fistula. Those are the only two things I know.
Wow, that's
imagine.
like both extremes.
Let's go around the room and talk about what things do we feel. He said erectile dysfunction and fistula.
Those are the two things I know.
Just go around as well in your mind,
in the comments,
in your comment section. I think maybe like girth in terms. Stamina, lasting.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so
stamina.
1 minute.
Hey, ludicrous. 1 minute man.
This is a Bolt.
The
right?
raindrop.
You're saying Bolt. The raindrop. Alikuja akienda.
Alikuwa anapitia.
Anapitia.
Even before you can finish, hiyo ni poa.
Hata kabla tuanze kusema ready set, mshamaliza. Right? So
what is this podcast?
And then there's also I have now. Joyce, I hope
oh my God.
Go for it.
Dry surface area.
Dry vagina. Yes. Yeah. Do you know what we call that?
Okay.
Because he went to fistula.
Yeah, that's extreme. Because
I have an and
I mean, no pun intended, but
diseases, right? Yeah. Unwanted I'm just trying to show that the age difference in this podcast, right? Like us Gen Z, we think about fistula.
Sorry, man.
No, I don't know if this is an issue or not, but like men not understanding the female anatomy. Men don't know what they're doing. That's because they don't ask questions. No one taught them, you know?
But then
they don't even like Google it because they're like, I'm a man, I'm supposed to know how to do these things. You know nothing. That's my thigh, my guy. That's not my vagina.
Who are you hanging
You know what I mean? Yo!
Joyce.
You've never seen this funny, like, what's your funniest? No. You've never seen these comments for what's your funniest sex story? Yeah, someone actually said some guy was kneeing her, the middle of her thighs, and he thought that was the knee, and he finished the job.
The reason I went through this exercise.
You should see everyone in the room.
The reason why we're doing this exercise is it's interesting what you mentioned, that you have, as a parent, you have two options.
2 daughters, right.
2 options.
Right.
You either do the sex talk
Right.
with them, or they will have to have a sex therapist.
Later
Honestly, in
their
future, to
It's,
help
no,
them.
'cause it's the folks of the streets. That's
Yeah.
You
it.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's it.
And I didn't have that conversation with my parents. With my parents, it was more like, boys, pregnancy, AIDS,
Death.
usitulete watoto. Hatutaki watoto hapa.
Wow, death is crazy.
And then-
And then all of a sudden, after all that, somewhere in your late 20s, early 30s, they switch. Where are the grandchildren? You're like, what do you mean?
And I remind my mother every day that it is her fault.
Yeah,
Every
see, you're the
day.
one who said, do you remember that
You're the
boy I
one
brought
who
you
said.
12 years ago? You said he's rubbish. Hand out after me. No, but then, so to my point of erections, lady, sexual talk. Of course, I know everything in between because my parents are doctors and my folks were very kind to give us all this material. But then she said she's finding herself inundated by the most basic problems.
Yeah.
Because nobody taught them. How to take care of your sexual reproductive organs, how to take care of your kidneys, how to take care of your body, just generally. Things like odors, personal sweat. And people, how to get a woman or a man aroused for sexual relations. The thing that surprised me is that the couple she's dealing with are married.
Yeah.
So what have they been doing?
What have they been doing?
That's
There's a person
crazy.
who I saw a lady confessing that she was married for 8 years. They never consummated the marriage.
You should see this.
I've personally dated someone who was asexual. You understand? Exactly.
Did they know that they were asexual or
Did you know that they were asexual?
Do men?
no?
If they don't know where the vagina is.
No, I'm saying, did they know or did
No,
they
as I
just
thought.
like
Denial is the key word. Denial. Unaanza unajideny. Unajideny. Nianze hapa
Yo,
kufundisha,
stop.
right? If you don't know what asexual is, it's just someone who probably doesn't get
Prefers not to.
prefers
Yeah.
not to have sex, right? And so it took me meeting an ex of theirs
Yeah, because you have to call people.
to be like, "Kumbe si mimi."
But, so that's what I'm saying. Did they know they were asexual? Because you see, there's no vocabulary to these things even to begin with. So some guy will just be
Joyce.
like, "Me sipendangi tu hiyo kitu."
Hauna mahanja.
You know, I'm like,
Unafanya nini hapa? Tunataka nikuwe best friend yako.
What are you dating someone
Am I your
for?
sister?
We're cousins.
What are we talking about, guys? Yeah, so anyway, so I don't judge.
This podcast
I
has
appreciate
gone places.
I appreciate. But then let's go back to parents and you're talking about the community. I was checking out a guy who was talking about how it's so important to have all these people, grandparents, siblings involved in raising a kid because of what Joyce talked about. Love doesn't just necessarily come from you.
Yeah.
You
No.
see, like that conversation,
Yeah.
your daughter felt like she could reach out to grandpa, grandma
Yeah,
would be
There's
able
a
to-
village.
grandma,
Yeah.
right? That you're raising someone, you're co-parenting.
Mhm.
And we talk about, in fact, in the last episode, in another episode,
Yeah.
previously, we're talking about how there should be classes for co-parenting.
Facts. In this day and age,
Yeah.
Because
Yo,
it
man.
is, it's like Y2K, right? And then now, very fast as a millennial, I have to say, I have gone through all sorts of
I thought you were Gen Z.
Nini. As a Gen Z, Jesus.
Wow.
I'm on the cusp.
No,
Wow.
you're not.
She's a
no,
liar.
she's squarely
She's
in the-
a liar.
We did Y2K.
Yeah.
I'm here doing a revolution. My guy, calling
We've
it
seen
all.
it. We've seen it. We saw a pandemic that took 100 years. Like,
Okay.
we've not had one since
Bruh,
1918.
yo.
We've seen 2 financial crashes.
My
We've
guy.
seen 2 almost wars.
Forget that boomer who was telling me about GJ Industrial Revolution.
What's
I'm
that?
like, yeah,
Hey,
right?
man.
AI revolution.
But
That's what
you
it
look
is.
at the more we get connected, the more disconnected and disjointed we are. And so chances are somebody is going to right now has found themselves pregnant with somebody. Or maybe they were in a relationship and that relationship has ended for whatever reason, even
Right.
before the baby is here, right? And those are the options that we have now.
Or maybe they don't want the relationship, but they want the baby.
Yeah. But nobody prepares you for co-parenting. From all my friends that are co-parenting, I always go like, guy, na kuna mtu sahi ana have unprotected sex na mtu mwenye hata ajui.
Clean fire.
Like, get up off that
Like
person
you could
right
literally
now.
be given a package, gift hamper ya kutoka nayo hiyo friendship.
Yeah.
And this gift hamper, you have to leave it for life.
Forever.
Today, there's a day a lady posted and she said she dropped the son to the daughter to the husband's house, the co-parent's house.
Yeah.
And the co-parent took their daughters and shaved their hair. She was sitting there. The only thing she could do was switch on a camera and just vent. Because she's like, how do I deal with this human? So,
why would you do that? Yes, please.
I would have done the same thing.
Hiya?
Yes.
What do you mean? Without telling the mom?
Yes.
Hiya?
Why?
My daughter, my daughter's hair, my how do I say this? My ex-partner's dad is part European.
Okay.
So my ex-partner's hair is naturally longer than her shoulder.
Okay.
Even sometimes get to her middle back. So it's long.
Yeah.
My genealogy is Gekoyo in the central region.
Through and through.
And our jewelry is like Stubu. Now, combine Stubu with wrong hair. And then tell me why I'm sitting there watching a 5-year-old, 4-year-old, 3-year-old getting blow dried in tears for an hour. Do you see how if you don't know, you don't know?
You wouldn't have this chat with me.
Yeah, but you have the discussion.
No, let me tell you. I had the conversation. And I believe, I don't want to put words in her mouth because she's a wonderful mom. But she said something like, how else do we deal with it? And her hair truly was something she was very proud of. Like, you know how she'd be like, oh my God, daddy, look at my hair. It's an afro or it's long, whatever. And she loved her hair. But the pain of the blow dry, because she had to be put outside, like we would move her. It was just, I couldn't do it. And I said, I swear to God, if I ever have this again, I will shave it all. And I had gotten to a point where truly, if I had her cry again, I'd shave it. To the point where, at that time we were together, she said, I will never take her to a salon again. You will. And to this day, I take her to the salon. They're 14 and 12 now. Yeah. Because if I ever genuinely, she saw me when I said it, I would have taken scissors and cut off that hair. Because that's how I appreciate my child. Why am I seeing my baby crying?
Why not she's blow dry the hair yourself?
Let her grow. No, so you see, it got to a point where I actually started doing it myself.
Yeah.
I went to the salon. But then it's because I'm patient. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have stress of a boss telling me I have to come up with a report due on Monday morning. I can go to a salon for 5.5, 6 hours. I can do it. But how many men have that coding?
Right.
Rare. If at all. I went there. In fact, I met a couple of people who are friends now, who are women, who are like, we've come to this salon for 4 years. You're the first man who comes constantly with the child. You know, they were even thinking my ex-wife was dead.
Do you know, my dad used to
that's the only reason you could be in a salon.
That's the only reason you're in a salon.
Because she's no longer with us.
I'm like, no, it's because my baby and the ladies of the salon who I could see were rough with somebody else's kids were never rough with mine. Because I'm 6'4", I'm going to stand on top of you like a fucking building.
Like, why?
I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I know how this is done. There's even one who's like, these are the right products. I'm like, this one makes my child's head itch. Yeah. She's like, no, that's the only one we have. I'm like, then go buy another one.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, and I'm shouting so everybody knows. Yeah. You're not going to deal with my child like a number or like a client. This is my child. Yeah. So those kind of boundaries I was able to build, and because I was able to build them, my kids had a really good experience in salons, and to this day, same thing.
Can I ask, sorry, let me just ask, did you ask her how she wants to deal with the hair?
Sorry.
Your daughter?
I didn't, she was 4.
But I my hair was actually cut when I was like 5 because my mom told me, if you sit here and you scream one more time, I'll take you to the kinyozi to cut your hair. I was like, we cut it. And she took me and I cut it. When my firstborn started getting her hair done, she was about 3.5. And at that time it was softy. Yeah. So she enjoyed the process. But as she started getting like to 4, there was actually a very stark difference. And I think it's because of chemicals, I'm not sure. But there's a very stark difference from what softy hair she had to the shaggy hair. Because my hair was the same a lot.
Finishing the braids. You know what I mean?
I used to scream and shout. You remember Kenyatta Market where it was one side was the salons, the other side is the kinyozis. So she was always taking me to the salon. And every time, I swear to God, I was screaming that like if somebody's child dying. So she told me one more time, if you sit here and you scream because of your hair being blow dried, nitakupeleka kwa kinyozi. Kasema nipeleke, kanyuzi tena. Nikupeleke kwa kinyozi, kasema nipeleke. Tulivuka, nikaenda nikanyoa nywele. And I never had stress for blow drying for like another few years.
There you go. So
I was very happy.
My daughter didn't want her hair to be cut. Didn't want. So then I was like, then if you don't want your hair to be cut, then we have to negotiate. I'll do this slowly, but you need to stop crying. Yeah. And she's like, Daddy, that's painful. I'll do it. Until to the point where I got the right person to do it. Yeah. And I used to pay twice as much because she couldn't do 2 clients. She could only do 1. Yeah. Because it's double the time. Exactly. But I'm okay with it. You see what I'm saying? That's where my head is at with these things. Yeah.
Makes sense.
You know, when I think about co-parenting, one of the biggest challenges is that parents are always trying to stunt on each other.
That's
Like
stupid.
literally, like
Stupid.
me, I've already diagnosed the problem with
It's like the
co-parenting,
high school kids
right?
never end. You just grow older.
It starts to become a popularity contest because I don't know. I don't want to say it's it's your. I'd say it's not something most people have seen how it operates. So it's a green space. You're there winging it as you go with your partner, and depending on how this relationship ended, will determine how the co-parenting goes. So you have cases where people are in court for eternity until the kids are growing. Like they're literally here now. We are, adulting. My Shaila, right? Then you have other cases where one parent is just like, me, I will provide only if I have access to these kids, right? And at the bottom there are kids who are just like growing resentment, right? Growing and just going like, why am I even in this nini position? You got so much ego between the two of you that you're willing to take this child to court to go and tell the court. And it's not like both of you are demons. It's not like there's somebody who's doing illegal stuff in the house. It's just that you are doing a popularity ego contest.
Let me tell you something. If you co-parent your children badly, two things will happen. First thing is, your child will know who the crap parent is. They will know.
For real. They're not dumb.
And then the second thing is, they will forever punish you for it. Kids become adults. Why do you think there are adults who never go to see their grandparents? Why do you think there are adults who never show their children who their grandparents are? We are old enough to have friends who are co-parented badly. There are men who've died in their houses and they were found a week later in this Nairobi because their kids didn't care. And the funeral had 4 people.
Oh my God.
Even if they had 4 children, 4 people. And 2 of them were the ones with the spades. They didn't care. They will punish you for it. Don't be foolish. Whatever you had with your partner that failed, things fail. How many times have you baked bread and it didn't work? Unapika chakula, unaangalia simu, you come back, it's chomeka. Things fail. And even if it's that other person's fault or yours, it doesn't matter. What happened. Moving forward, make a good decision for your child. And here's how you fix any bad co-parenting situation. This is brazen to say. The way you fix any bad co-parenting situation is you love the child. Not decide don't feel like I'm not who's going to choose the right school. No. If you love the child, you find a way to make everything work.
Yeah.
Love the child. I used to have a friend who used to have that situation because I had like a small circle of friends. He actually passed away quite a year and something ago. And he had a similar struggle of being appended by the mom of the child.
Right.
And he said, Tony, I don't know what to do because there's just some financial things I may not be able to do because she's much more well off than I am. And I said, do you spend time with her, the child? And he said, I do. And he said, that's it. Yeah. Children do not translate love into how many KFCs you buy, how many iPhones you buy, how expensive the school is. They translate it with how much of yourself you give to them. And not at I'm driving you places. When I sit with you and we play Monopoly together, Jenga together, watch if it's manga that you like. I've built such a strong relationship with my kids that when they're talking about a show, I've watched it with them. So right now they're in this fantastic manga phase. And I know all the names, Tanjiro. I know all the names of all the characters. Yeah. So when my daughter is saying, I'm saying, there's even one time, and I tell this story in another podcast, there's one time a show came up at 2:30 in the morning, and there's this thing called Crunchyroll, which is like Netflix for Japanese manga. Okay. And I got a notification that it had shown up, and I was just happening to be working late. It was a school night. I woke them up at 2:30, and I was like, Demon Slayer, the movie's out. Do you guys want to watch it now? They woke immediately up drowsy. I made all of us tea. I put the fireplace. We got Crunchyroll. We cast it on TV. We watched it. It was about 1 hour, 45 minutes long. They went to sleep at like 4:15. And I was like, 6:30, we're going to school. They're like, cheers. And they woke up and the night through, they dreamt about it. The whole morning we were talking about it. They struggled. I struggled. Dropped them to school. They struggled in school. We came back. When we got home at 4:30, we all went to sleep. Woke up at 6:30, but to this day, that story is spoken about in the house.
Memory.
It's a core memory.
I'm listening to you talking about all this, and I'm seeing. Then it must be very difficult if you've decided to have a child with somebody who is you guys are not on the same vision, sort of. Yeah, and like maybe my ethos is school nights they must be sleeping till, and now I'm co-parenting with somebody who's like, I'm going to wake you up in the middle of the night to watch cartoons, right? And you see, if I'm from the school of thought of, this is how I instill discipline, and then they're like, but daddy, you know, we are going to have problems, especially if we're not of the same, like, I know, because a lot of people who find themselves parenting with somebody,
right,
you then realize that your values in this person's are very different.
And they always were, even when you were together and when you're apart. And this is what I tell my kids. I'm like, and this is the best part. And I really like that you've said that, because it's true. We are very different in that way. My co-parent partner is not going to do that. But the thing I say is, you know, the beauty of having two parents, and I tell this to my kids, is that we both have our strong parts and our weak parts. I am weak at this and I'm a fan of it, so I'm going to make you wake up or whatever. But your mom's not like that. But she's very good at this and I'm weak at that. So whenever I'm in trouble, I'm going to turn to her. So what they see is a dad validating the decisions the mom makes. And then the mom has no reason to invalidate my decisions, because when the first person they'll tell the story when she calls is, guess what daddy did yesterday? And then she doesn't take that as an opportunity to cut me down. She laughs and says, how did you guys survive school? And it becomes a thing we talk about.
It's an actual partnership.
It's an actual partnership.
Not a competition.
And so you're not trying to put the other person down. And if you have challenges with them, don't be emotional and don't take it personally. Be like, yo, co-parent, not, you did. No, it's like, how are you thinking about this? Because I don't understand how you're thinking about this. And I don't want, because I remember that the core thing is love the child. I don't think you're doing it nefariously to hurt the child, but I don't understand it. How are you thinking about it? When I chose to move them from the school they were in to another school, I told my partner, this is what I'm going to move them to. And she said, I can't afford to help you with that financially. I said, I'll take care of it. But then when they went to that school, there was a different culture. And that culture it's an expensive school. It's a different culture. That culture was a bit problematic at the beginning. And so my co-parent partner was like, what do we do about this therapy? I said, let's give it a little bit, but I'll pay a little bit more attention. And I've been dropping and picking the kids myself instead of getting the driver to do it. So the first thing they tell me when they get in the car, how was your day? And at one point, one of my daughters was being bullied a bit, and I got involved really quickly and settled the situation. And now they're coasting.
Did you get involved with the parents or with the school?
With the teacher.
Oh, with the teacher.
With the teacher, and I was like, yo, this situation is looking like this. This is how my daughter is seeing it. And then when the teacher got involved, they were like, oh, it's because she doesn't have friends. When somebody of influence in the classroom said something, my daughter felt like that person made everybody think that thing.
Right.
So it wasn't like she was coming at her. It's just, she said,
perception.
My daughter had come from a different system. Her first Swahili exam, she got like 4 out of 60 because it was quite.
She's lucky she wasn't in Naivasha board.
Die. You understand me? Die. I'd be picking pieces of my child.
You know,
right? It's crazy. Hey. So when a child comes and says, oh, are you so down? She took it very personally.
Okay.
But then now when we turned the situation around, the teacher talked to the classroom, talked about the different systems. She got a study buddy, and now she's in the upper 50s. Out of 100. It's not amazing.
Awesome.
But that's a big,
it's a big
growth,
difference.
Right? That's what happens when a parent gets involved.
That's awesome.
Do you know, every time I don't know.
And we've still not talked about it.
We've gotten to the school part, so we'll get there soon. We always, warm up.
Every parent's aspiration, well, the ones I know. I don't know about your parent. And if this wasn't your parent's aspiration, by the way,
God bless you.
We still love you. Boxer.
That's so cool.
Every parent's aspiration. I remember how many times my mom would tell me, I want you to live a better life than mine. I want you to experience more things than I've ever experienced. And I feel like that was the wind beneath my wings. And every parent wants to give their kid an experience much better, because I'm listening to the guy who came from Naivasha.
My guy.
Mepeleka mtoto kwa shule, and he's on top of everything. Do you feel like your experience makes you go through, you want to be there, like, hey, where's my daughter? If someone even beats your daughter,
I will kill him.
I would co-sign that message, in fact.
Sorry, no, clean.
I would actually co-sign that message.
This is how you know. I was in a traffic jam in Rongai. I was taking them to their grandparents on that side. And there was a crazy guy on the road. It was at night. Traffic is crazy on that road. Magadi Road is the devil.
It's the worst.
What is happening?
What?
So,
that's why when you put a dual carriage to Thika Road, badly Rongai, what do you expect?
That was my route every day for 3 years because of school, man.
Shit.
Wow, it's rough. But I'm there. This guy is very well dressed, but I found out a little later he's schizophrenic, which is a konakashida hapo kidogo. And he was banging on matatu window. So I thought, that he's having a conflict with somebody in the window. Like, it's a Mathri.
Yeah.
You cannot.
Like, what's happening?
You don't know what's happening, right? And the Mathri is quite tall, so it's those, First of all, matatus of Rongai are a whole different story. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But when he finished, because the matatu was passing and the car is passing this way, as the matatu is passing me, he turns from hitting the matatu window and he turns around and starts hitting the back window of my car. Now, and it's closed. My daughter is sleeping in the back. So she wakes up and looks outside just as he starts hitting the window and she screams. I turn inward to look at her and see what's the problem. And this guy is really banging the window. And I very quickly remove my seatbelt, unlock my door, put the car on handbrake, put the car on park, turn around. In a second, I'd come out of the car and I was looking at him.
Yeah.
And the way I was looking at him, I was going to hurt him very badly. But because he was at the back of the vehicle, he ran. This is how I knew I was in trouble. By the time I'd come back to my senses, nilikuwa nimemfuata kitu ka 25 meters. Tumetokana.
Yo, you left the car there.
Nimeacha gari mlango wazi.
Yo!
In the traffic, the door is open. I watered that guy. And then we ran through a petrol station. We took a petrol station from one corner to the other. Then one of the attendants was shouting, "He's crazy, he's crazy, he's crazy."
Oh.
So the first 2 times I thought,
in this story,
he's telling me I'm
who's
the
the
crazy
one here?
Yeah. Are you calling me crazy? You're next.
But
So I knew that was not me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Because he said, I'm a cheesy, So when I looked, he says he's pointing at the guy.
Oh.
Then I slowed down.
Okay.
Because I thought you were the crazy one.
I thought so.
Yeah,
I was
because I'd be like,
you
you're
left
next. You're calling
everything.
me crazy. I'm calling for
The
you
ones
next.
you're protecting, you've left them.
ran, he potted in the darkness of Rongai.
Yeah.
And so when I come back to the car, my kids are scared.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was warming up. But that's when your adrenaline is settling. And you can't come in with that rage. But I'm laughing. I was just chasing him. I wanted him to go away. You're trying to. But you can see that the kids are like, I'm so glad you're on our side.
Yeah.
This situation is crazy. You close the door, so I drop them. I tell my ex-wife what the situation was. And I tell her, just be aware. And she's like, truly the whole night, they usually go do things all over the place. They sat next to her the whole night. They just stayed there until bedtime, because of that fear, rage, whatever. So yes, I think as a parent who's gone through a traumatic situation when you're a child, you become extremely vicious when you're older because you revert to that 9-year-old boy who had not protected them. Sure. And then you always assume your kids are feeling the way you are feeling. And then that abandonment comes out in a very unhinged fashion. True. And that's what you see a lot when you see people become very violent.
True. All right.
Before we cross over to education, when I was checking out your Engage talk, there's something you mentioned about the impact of that school. You can leave a place, you can do all sorts of amazing things. And we're about to hear about the amazing things that Tonee has done in his life. Tonee, you're my friend, and I was sitting there going like, if Tonee collapses right now, this guy has already lived.
Yeah, he's done it all.
Not yet.
Like, this guy is impressive, But then when you look at people who are, like when I see the story of comedians like, the guy for Jumanji was called who?
Which one?
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, right.
You look at people who are very, very happy. And they say people who are very, very happy or who are very filled with positive energy know how to share that because they know what darkness looks like.
That's for sure.
Right? And you shared something very sensitive in your life. You said there was a teacher who you carried in your head. Do you still carry this teacher?
Yeah, 100%.
So for our viewers who I know I haven't watched that Engage talk, what was this teacher? Who was this teacher?
So I struggled with math heavily, and he was the math teacher at that time in that school. And of all the grades, it's the grade I got the least, scores in. And so every day, not week, daily, like he had an account. He used to, because it's a teacher account. He had an account where I had beating credits. So if I have like 90, if I have 10%, because I used to get those numbers, like 10, 15, 20%. He just towards you with an algebra exam and you have not angalia that thing. You're over there recruiting with like 12%. Now, he you owe him 88 canes. So he would not beat you in one day because he's tired. He's like a chubby dude. So he'd just find you, no, come, you owe me 88. And he beats you like 10, and he's not beating you in your bum. He's just whipping you whatever way he can. He's only 15. That was the constant. So you just get used to it. And that's crazy to say. You get used to it.
That's crazy. You're a child.
So what I did was I made him the villain, and I made my life such that he doesn't have power over everything else. And to do that, you actually put somebody in a pedestal. You don't know this, but then you do that. And it's the same thing with all forms of assault, whether it's sexual assault, physical assault, financial assault, emotional assault, whatever. You make that person very key, because whoever else comes into your life goes through the filter of that guy. They are like the sun. The orbit of your life exists around that darkness.
Yeah.
You can't even help, because that person had so much influence. You're always like, are you like this guy? Or are you like,
are you on the
Jesus
other side of this guy?
So it's always, he's the comparison. And what you end up doing is the more you compare others to him, the more you become like him. This is why when a kid says, I grew up with a very abusive father,
you turn into him. You
turn either into him or the exact opposite, which sometimes becomes an even worse version of the abuser, because you stop being a physical abuser, you become an emotional abuser. And because you haven't confronted the fact that the abuser is the core of your existence, that's what this guy became. And in everything I did, I was doing it in a perfectionist level, because when he stopped beating me after that year, he still did it emotionally, because his words stuck. You can't do it. You're too stupid. Your brain can't sit in one place. Your fingers, you're always fidgeting. You're this, you're that, you're this. Those words stuck with me. So whenever I did something, you're praising it. Even now, I still do it. You're like, oh, Tonee, you've done these amazing things. I don't think so. I just don't think so. That's not Tonee. That's that guy. Still saying, what have you done?
Yeah.
This is not big enough. That's the conversation I always have to have with myself, even when I succeed in doing those amazing things. Because usually you shoot for the stars and you hit the moon.
Yeah.
Everyone is impressed by the moon, because then they are just looking outside at the tree, the neighbor's house.
Like,
you were shooting, you were looking at the moon.
Yeah.
But you missed the stars. That's what you remember. I missed it. And so even now, with all the successes I think I have, I still don't think they're nearly anything because of his voice.
And this person stays with you.
He died in 1992.
Dang.
He's still here because I exist.
You know, when I watched your Engage talk, it made me realize that a lot of people, because I work a lot to Gen Z, and most of the DMs I get are people complaining about their parents and the impact, because now with information, you start to understand, wait, the things that were happening to me were not normal.
Crazy.
This is crazy. You talk to people and they're like, that's not normal. You're like, what?
They're like, what do you mean?
Not everybody was beaten for.
There's a guy who used to be closed in a kabati.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your parent. By your parents.
And you're not given food. And then the next morning you wake up, you're 7, you shower, you dress, no breakfast, you go to school.
How old are they?
You walk. You're 7.
That's insane.
7 to 10.
Yeah.
And that was his mother.
Yeah. And so that actually brings a very interesting point. What people don't realize is, okay, if we went through that, right, when the time you went through, right? Imagine what it was like 20 years before. Imagine what our parents went through, right?
Yeah.
So imagine that teacher.
That's right.
Yeah,
because you said something. You said you either become the thing that or you become another extreme version.
Yeah.
So imagine the person he was carrying in his head.
Yeah. And I think that's what gave me empathy, because in fact, that's a very, very powerful statement. It took me a very long time to go for therapy about it. It was actually after the Engage talk that I went for therapy. Years after. That Engage talk was like 6-7 years ago. And after I painted my picture, the therapist was like, let's paint the picture of your abuser. I'm like, why? Like, because the only way you can move on is forgive.
Yeah.
The only way to forgive is to empathize. And the only way to empathize is to understand. I didn't know anything about it. That's how I knew that he died, right? So we came up with some assumptions, but I actually made it an intentional effort to go and find out where this guy
he is. Yeah.
Because now he can't fight me. So I went to look, and that's how I found out he died in 1992 in a car accident, actually, going to Naivasha. And so when I was, I saw the story, obituary, he had a couple of children, the vibes. And to your point, it said there where he grew up. He grew up in Gatodo, and he was a child of one mom. That mom had a number of kids. And so, just follow up. It's serendipity.
Yeah.
I happened to meet somebody who was related to one of those kids. And they were like, his mom was a known, obviously I think I could say it on this podcast. His mom was a known sex worker.
Oh, snap.
A majority of those kids were not related.
Yeah.
And this was the job. That definitely changed the
perception of him.
Because his mom was there during the colonial time. And so there are these women who would go to the colonial camps, and it was Mau Mau time.
Yeah.
And so they were grossly hated and abused by the freedom fighters, but they were also still used as casual sex slaves. And then they would then sell their services to the army and the British Army, but then also the what are they called? The Kenyan Army. It was called.
Yeah.
There was a name for them. The Home Guards.
Home Guards. Yes.
Oh, that was the name. I had no idea.
Home Guards.
Wait,
Jackie. Chill.
Joyce. Stop. So now when you see that,
through emotional abuse.
yeah, there's an emotional abuse here. When you say somebody needs to talk to somebody. So when you see all of that, is when you see actually this was abuse carried forward, and I'm just a result of the abuse carried forward. The problem though is there were 600 plus kids in that school, and many of them went through the whole system. Yeah. And now those are your husbands, boyfriends, partners, brothers, teammates, colleagues, MPs, governor, presidents. Those are your people. And so when you see a man being picked from Homa Bay and brought into a prison cell and then beaten to death in Karura or whatever the new investigation is saying, and you're like, how are these animals possibly capable of doing this? It's because those animals were raised by animals who are raised by animals. And that's just what the reality is. And we have to fix it and punish for sure to teach the other animals that there are repercussions. But at the same time, you have to appreciate that there was a path for them to become as crazy as they are. And we must address that as well.
And especially if you have a parent who you think is like, like nini mbaya na umsi, and you are adult enough, because I say everybody who's watching this podcast is an adult, right? You have to be responsible for how you interact with people on this planet, right? You can't put your childhood on your parent.
At some point, you have to stop.
Trust me, right? Yes, they did some things, right? But if you look at, the like you said, 600 people you were in class with, me, thousands of people, because that school was it was known. It's in fact, the other KCP they got, everybody had an A.
Everybody.
You know why now? You know why, right?
They're still...
Yes, it's a top school still.
And that's how they're still treating children.
I can't. I even went to Kisii the other day, and there was a whole plan. We're going to pass through the school. I just couldn't. I came up with in fact, I ended up doing random. I went to see a...
Guys, are they still treating children like this?
There are schools that are still...
What proof do we have that they don't?
There are schools that are still beating
Kenya has
kids.
stopped corporal punishment legally.
Legally, yeah, but like...
How many legal...
punishment is still on.
Treating children like that's
Joyce, how many legal things have been done?
I'm on the I'll be on the radio in the morning, and there's a kid who's calling me, and they're like, hey, kwa box sasa niko fiti maze nataka kukimbia kwenda shule. As in basically they're running to school, and I'm like, oh, should I play your song? In fact, I'm late. I won't even be able to listen to the song. Yesterday I was beaten. Right? And he's basically on the radio telling us how the teachers took him to the field. Right? So automatically I'm like, sir, I know. Just run. Right? So we must extend each other grace, because if we're trying to fix whatever is going on in our system, and I'm glad you brought the issue of the police, because I posted the other day when this story of Albert came out, and I said, when the dust settles and you're tired of being annoyed and angry, we have to look at the real issue. Maraga's team last year, 2024, did a report, and they talked about, it was a task force reform for the police. And their findings were, we need to scrap the whole police force. All of it. Everybody needs to go. Because of that thing that you've just mentioned. So we all can feel you meet a police officer and you're like, are you normal?
Quite literally.
Literally. And it's, in fact, when you find a sane one, you're even just like, wow, you even start now wanting to say, yeah, not all police are bad, right?
And then you're like, he's the only one.
But it's the induction.
Because even how they are trained. I remember I sat down with someone who was training to be a police officer. They actually torture them for fun.
Giganjo is
Like
madness.
that's where their programming starts. You're being told to carry a backpack with God knows how many pieces of how is that supposed to help you to become a policeman?
Now think about it.
And they're actually beating you as you do that. What kind of training is that? This is the person who's supposed to protect you. They are being beaten like animals and being tortured for fun without
and
water.
That dehumanization.
They
just transfer
They're going to transfer it to us.
The Kenya police was not meant to serve and protect. It was meant to protect the system.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So the training is the same way the schools we've just mentioned. And guys are like, what do you mean? Right? This is a British legacy. This is the British legacy. If you go anywhere in their colonies, the story replicates itself.
It's a colonial legacy.
And Maraga's report was, because it was very extensive, and they said, if we are to fix this issue of the police service, we have to get everyone out and start recruiting afresh, right? Because it's in the system. And it makes me sad to say that Albert will not be the last.
He will not. But I will say this.
And he's not even the only one.
I mean, there's more.
He's just the one who's been highlighted.
There's currently a repost of the number of young people who have been murdered in the last year, post-July, right?
Yeah.
But then here's the thing, and I think this is really key, because it's very important in a situation like this to always point out hope. There's a very big generation of Gen Z cops, as much as they are Gen Z young people.
True.
And these Gen Z cops didn't come up like this. They didn't come up like that, like the way we came up. And they have the conscientious nature to understand and appreciate that there's a different way for things to be done.
Yeah.
And just like every fish rots from the head, we have to look at what the structure looks like in the police force and where the change needs to happen for most impact. I think it needs to happen at the top. But even as it needs to happen at the top, it's good that it happens from the bottom as well. And what you'll end up seeing is the more people engage and interact with cops in a better fashion, the more cops interact with people in a better fashion as well. It's one thing to go and call all the police rubbish. Then it's another thing to call out the ones who did a bad job and praise the ones who did a good job. Because the pathologist, the government pathologist, could have lied, but he didn't.
Yeah, true.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what the Independent Police Oversight Authority says. Would love to be, because those are also cops.
Yeah.
The opportunity for success is there. It's just that it needs to be taken, and Gen Z needs to keep the pressure going every day.
Absolutely.
Things will change.
You see what the DCI said? He mentioned the OCS were central. I feel like that is another giant leap forward, because anyway. And I'm glad you brought the issue of Gen Z, because now, again, watching you, as the impressive human that you are. So I'm glad that we've started from getting to know who you are and how you think, and I'm sure there's so many other things we don't know. But when I speak of impressive, Joyce, this man is impressive.
I know that for a fact.
Please.
So
just take your flowers, my guy. Take your flowers.
We're learning things. As we keep going, you learn. The other day, someone sent me a message to receive my flowers, and I was like, "Oh no!" And we went back and forth doing this thing what you're doing right now. And she and I remember she stopped and she was like, "I can't keep doing this with you. You either take your flowers." And it also speaks to the challenges as you're growing up and you're like, no, I don't deserve to be told these things. I'm not doing any. But for us who are watching you, you are a tech preneur who's started businesses, failed at some, succeeded at some, but never feared to keep, starting something new.
Exactly.
Most people will tell you, you do your first business in Chomekas and you go and find
never find a
sponyo or a job because you are not going to buy.
And also, fun fact, you've made it on this podcast maybe twice. So, like when I tell you I consume your content, I consume your content. Remember even when I was talking about the future of jobs and AI and the report, I saw it on his page and I haven't stopped talking about it since. There's also something else we are talking about. I also quoted like one of your videos, so I'm a huge fan of your content. Like I learned so much.
Thank you very much. That's cool.
So how did you become really good? Because with the preamble we've given, how did you become good at speaking? Because you'd think that that's the one thing that would be beaten the hell out of you.
Yeah. No, because you talk yourself out of That's what's up.
That's how simple.
Why have you not done your homework? Okay, Madam, listen. I was walking here. There was a donkey that came from
the donkey ate my homework.
No, it did not eat my homework. My homework was with me, but it hit me and I blacked out. That's what I did. I slept there and then it was Thursday. I went home on Tuesday, came on Thursday morning. I'm so sorry. The reality of it is, I've learned that there's for you to survive, you need to have one of four things. And all of them is perfect. First, you need to and communication will be the last one. But the first one is you need to be attractive. Attractive is different things for different people, but you need to be attractive in some way. I think you have all seen the meteoric rise of Kenya's tallest man.
Yeah.
In ours, Moti.
He's on his way to Romania.
He's going to Romania. Why is he going to Romania? You see, let me tell you something. Why? He's attractive. And attractive doesn't necessarily mean just beautiful. It means you attract attention. I think another person who's done a phenomenal job is Omanyala. You see what I mean?
Actually,
first he looks the part, then he's fast, and now he's speaking about how Kenya/Africa will be doing short distance races. Attention. That attractability, whatever it is, be intelligent, be attractive, you just need to draw attention. Excellent. That's one. Number two, and this is really key, you need to know how to sustain relationships. And you know how to cut off relationships. You have to know both. You don't just build them. There are people who have put money in my business. I've gone and I found out a little bit more about them, and I'm like, no. That's it.
That's out of
and
integrity.
You respectfully give them the capital back, and you tell them, it's not that you're not a fantastic person. Zote. Sent in
That's
assume me.
so anti-Kikuyu of you, honestly.
Hey, how do I know it? Yes, it's true. My people will be a bit concerned.
Our ancestors are disappointed.
Because I know where I'm going. I've seen the vision of where I'm going, and I know what you're affiliated with, and I don't want it. That's it. That's all.
That's integrity. Right?
And it's going to hurt you in the long run.
In the long run, you are a disaster. So be able to maintain relationships and know which ones to cut off. The second thing. The third thing is you need to understand who and what you are. This is where most people fail. I don't even know how to say this. If you don't know who you are, you will go down any single path that's put up in front of you that looks promising because you don't know who you are. If you do know who you are, you will take your path, even if most of it is through the darkness of the valley of the shadow of death. Because you know who you are and you know this is what you're built to do. And you know how it's going to end up. And that's what a lot of people miss. A lot of people are just floating. If you don't have a plan, everybody else's plan will work for you. And then the last one, and the most important one, is communication. If you don't know how to speak up for yourself, eloquently, succinctly, and quickly, you are done for.
That's true.
That's it. If you are going... I would love, in fact, I was laughing about this with a friend of mine. I'd much rather be an illiterate, good communicator than a knowledgeable,
bad
poor
communicator.